Hello, hello, and welcome to the show. So, I do a show every week, John. I try to do it every week called Finding Your Purpose. And I know I haven't had you on that show, and that this is not deliberate. Uh,
Mm.
but I think what we've been talking about for a few weeks now is really so special that, in effect, you and I are going to be doing it on this call,
Yeah.
uh, because but by various reasons we've both landed with the same nugget of an idea, and we've decided to implement it together. I think that's fair enough to say.
Yeah,
Of course,
that's right. Yeah.
our audience don't really know what I'm talking about right now, but hey,
Yeah. And
the
perhaps we don't either.
yeah, well, the suspense is
Yeah.
part of the moment. So I'm glad we found the time and the space to actually come together in
Mm.
this moment right now in order to launch this, because I think it's exactly the right time to do it, and there is some movement in this direction, as a few people have been alluding to. Because I during this lead up, I've been doing a short series on energy medicine that has been on my business page, and thank you. I think you've commented a few times on that, and there have been other healers who have made comments as well, and it's been a really almost a fateful, I would say, introduction to this, because when this was built, when my VA, who's very good at the creative side of things, when she came up with this idea of a campaign or to inform people a bit more about energy medicine, she didn't know that you and I were talking about creating this group. We're gonna, don't worry, the suspense, ladies and gents. We're going to get to that in a moment. The big reveal. Anyway, Hazel, God bless her, didn't really know that you and I were discussing this. So it's evolved really nicely and organically. And with that large and suspenseful preamble, I think we should introduce ourselves and how we kind of got to this place and this moment. So, John, I've talked for 2.5 minutes apparently, so it's over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm John Stevenson. I'm the mind-body catalyst, and I help people get out of places where they're stuck, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, anything. So I do face-to-face workshops at the moment, and I intend to do these over Zoom or StreamYard to help people to get in balance. Yeah, so it's balanced physically and mentally. So once you're in there, life just changes. Things just disappear. And holding on, letting go of the old things, what are stopping us getting on what we want to do. It's quite profound. And my story is, it all started. I did write the year down a while ago, but it's a long time ago. And I've been on a cruise, and we just got off, and we went to the supermarket to restock at home. And this woman stopped me as I pushed the trolley out of the supermarket, and she spoke to me, gave me a flyer, and touched my shoulder during the conversation, and my arm just tingled. And sorry, I've got something in my eye, and my arm just tingled, and I wanted more, so I paid the half price for the first lesson, and then I got stuck in the joys of the Alexander technique and understanding that I am who I am. Sorry, there's something in my eye, which is not very good for live videos, is it? Yeah. So I discovered that I thought I was normal. I was puffing in asthma inhaler, like there was no end to it. I'd walk through a door and I'd need to, because I'm changing into another room, I'd have to have just to get through the door. To get to the car, I need to have a puff to get to walk up the path we've got. Going to work, getting out the car, getting ready to go walk into the building, I don't need a puff. And then I'd have during the day, I'd have to nip away to the local loo and get another one to get back to work. I was in so much fright and anxiety, and I thought that was normal. And I reckon there's quite a few people out there who are listening to this who know people who just pump away on their asthma. And my asthma, there are different types of asthma. Asthma, for me, is psychological. And I don't want to talk about it on here, but there was certain big life events that one day, all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. I was stood walking up a hill and I didn't know where to go because I just couldn't move because my body had gone into shock.
You know what all this is reminding me of, John, and forgive me for interrupting the flow a little bit. I remember the first book, or the first book I seem to remember about reading about the whole of alternative medicine and stuff, and it was by a lady called Louise Hay.
Yeah.
And Louise talks about how basically there is no disease, there is dis-ease, and in order to, and apologies, Louise, if you're listening and it's not a direct representation of what you wrote, but what it meant to me was that effectively, medicine has a wonderful way of categorizing and codifying all these diseases and ailments and misalignments we have in our body. And once they're codified, they can be go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy can create a substance that deals with that thing called whatever it is. And so you get this wonderful gravy train of packages that emerge around a condition which has only just been given a name. But they're all misalignments, they're all energy misalignments.
Absolutely.
And that's the commonality.
But that's what I've learned is if you bring yourself back into balance, because Alexander technique is more about the physical. It looks like it's more about the physical alignment, and people think how to sit properly and all the rest of it. It's nothing to do with that. We just have a natural ability to sit well, to stand well, to walk well, whatever it is. But we've lost that over time, because it was the school teacher said, "You're tall. Can you squash down because the girl behind you can't see you? Can't see me. I can't see what she's up to." So you walk around fearful of your height. And there's it's the same as the people are allowed, keep quiet. And the teacher just wants them to be quiet so she can get up. Might be he. So they can get on and do their work, which is to keep these children entertained for their 40 minutes. Or whatever they're teaching. And equally, the ones who are quiet, asking them to speak up, because then they know they're engaging with what they're teaching. And it's not what those children want. Basically, they don't want to sit still. Because we're not designed to sit still like we are now. We're designed to move. So going back to my story, then what happened? I moved house, and we're moving up and down the country because we were broke. I hired a van, so it was a to and fro for 3 hours each way. So doing that 2 days, and I finally finished, and I sat on the loo in our new home, trousers down, and had an asthma attack. So my wife phoned up the ambulance, and ambulance came out, and then these two lovely women had to pull my trousers up. So I was really embarrassed about that. Got me in the ambulance, and then fitted a cannula into the back of my hand. And I was just lying there, and I felt, God, I can feel this cold fluid going up my veins. If it is the veins, will go up there. That's the arteries. Anyway, it was going up my arm, and I just going, I can breathe now. They've helped me. And then I looked at the back of my hand, and the cannula was in my arm, and it was ready to be connected to something in the hospital. They didn't even have any drugs in there. And I realised, this might be psychosomatic. So I went through the routine of going to hospital, and then they threw me out because there's nothing wrong. And it happened again later on. I got in the car, I was so angry about something. And I got home, and I couldn't get out of the car because I was all locked. Same, we went to the CCG and put the probes on me. Nothing wrong with you. Because somebody, I think it was the nurse, being saying, there, John, in their language. And I went, oh, somebody cares. And the asthma disappeared. Yeah, so the other one is, I feel like I'm talking too much, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so I discovered all that. So I actually practiced quite a lot. So I would, when an inhaler ran out, I would pretend I would take it around, empty one round, and take an empty inhaler, and my asthma would disappear.
Mm.
And then I moved on. I got braver. I had an imaginary inhaler, so I'd just go, and then, oh, that's better. And eventually, the need for an imaginary inhaler or any inhaler disappeared, and I let it go. But the doctors really wanted me to get onto more cleverer drugs to support my asthma or to keep me in that asthmatic state. I don't know what the truth is about that, but it was certainly when the asthma nurse I saw him, he had company logos on everything. So his job was to prescribe more drugs.
And I think it's I have a kind of a parallel story when it comes to my type 2 diabetes. Not the trousers down bit. I've never had that, but I share some of your feelings about this. But when I reflect on it now, I listen to lots of stuff, and people say, "Oh, there's a big conspiracy between big pharma and doctors and all that kind of stuff." I think the allopathic community, the doctor community, the nurses, whatever, I think it's well intentioned. I think all of it is well intentioned. But I think somehow in the process, we've lost touch with our own innate bodies, or hopefully not innate, but our own body's potential for healing itself.
Yeah.
And we started entrusting that to somebody else, as if you can abscond responsibility.
Yeah, and that is one of my key things when I teach. Is when I first work with someone, whether it's doing Alexander technique or working on a couch, is challenging them when I say, right, I'm the typical one for Alexander, I think, because they know he's all about posture and all the rest of it. And say, okay, let's start work, and they go, and they're presenting themselves to me that they're available and they want to do the work. So they've actually passed their authority on to me as a teacher. And that's their very first lesson, is to stop doing that. Is to be your own sovereignty, your own authority. You can choose to whether you engage with me or not. You are paying, so there is some engagement there. But it's to practice that when they leave me, is to go and practice having their own authority and own sovereignty. And if you don't like something, say no. And it's making that choice, and it's the stimulus and response which I work with is my forte. Which is there's a stimulus and we respond. And what we normally do is we go back to our back catalogue of life, and we got stimulus, and we go, that's similar to when I was at school. Therefore, I'm going to respond like a school child. And it's not appropriate when you're grown up, because it was there, and it was perfect. It worked really well when they were a child. And it survived them and got them to seeing me and seeing you and living. But it's not appropriate now. So it's making an appropriate decision from sovereignty and authenticity.
I think that's a good segue, actually, for me to say a little bit about my story.
But first, could I ask a question first? Yeah. I know about diabetes. I can almost spell it. And there's two versions, and I haven't got a clue what versions were.
Well, actually, there were more than two versions, but let's start off with the two main versions, which are type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes is the most common diabetes. 90% of diabetics have type 2 diabetes, and in fact, in the old days, I've got to say the old days, back in the kind of 90s, up around till the turn of this millennium, it was often termed age onset type 2 diabetes, because that was the prevalence that it happened as you got older.
Yeah.
Now they stopped using those terms, I think, in about 2008 or so, because the age where people got type 2 diabetes was coming down all the time, so it wasn't appropriate to, tag it with an age. It was so that was dropped. Type 2 diabetes is about insulin resistance. So we're all born with a pancreas, and the pancreas secretes a hormone called insulin.
Yeah.
And that insulin, is triggered and communicates with the liver all the time via almost like a super highway, and the insulin says to the liver, basically, that's enough. You can stop producing glucose now, because there's enough in your body. And that glucose is trapped in our body, in terms of in our muscles, and then we get a certain amount that travels in our blood as well. But there are natural stores there. With type 2 diabetes, those natural stores, it's like the stores are there, but the lock to open the door is broken, so that there's the insulin can't get in. And the natural body cycle is interrupted, and that will develop so far, and then people will develop fat around their viscera, around their organs, normally in the lower the belly area. That's the whisk area. Fat will develop. That communication mechanism, which I touched on there, gets worse and worse, until eventually you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That whole process takes between 10 and 15 years to reach the ultimate end of that cycle. So that's type 2 diabetes. And then type 1 diabetes is very different. Normally it's you get it from childhood, and it's where the pancreas just doesn't work, and therefore sugars can't be broken down, and in the old days, until they synthesized insulin in about the 20s, I think it was, the 20s or 30s, death was really, where you arrived very quickly, because the body couldn't extract energy from the glucose molecules and things that it was getting. Very, very sad state of affairs. As I say, that's why sometimes some of the medical breakthroughs are really so important. That's why I try to balance my criticism of pharmacology and the medical profession, because there are some things like the synthesization, if there is such a word, synthesization. I've just made it up if there isn't. The synthesization of insulin was absolutely crucial, and has extended the life of a type 1 diabetic enormously. But it's type 2 that I deal with, because type 2 is, I just call it's a lifestyle condition, John.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it sounds like it's a choice, a lifestyle choice.
It's a choice. And, God bless you, if you got type 2 diabetes, you probably didn't know you were making those choices, maybe. 15 or 20 years ago. And some of them, John, and this is where I get into my energy medicine practice. More oftentimes, there's a traumatic incident that happened sometime in the diabetic's past that has accelerated that process. Something that has created if you like, an abnormal. God, I hate that word normal actually, but I'll use it now. An abnormal requirement to kind of eat in stress situations, or to behave in a pattern that your body wouldn't want you to behave, and is screaming at you not to behave in that way. But because of that particular situation, it's created through that trauma, a habit has formed, which might have some emotional comfort when it was first formed, but can be really damaging to the body's functioning. And I got type 2 diabetes in 2000, and between 2000 and 2015, I basically reversed it with diet and exercise 3 times in that time, because as I say, it's a lifestyle condition. But each time it came back. And then in 2015, I actually became an insulin dependent diabetic, which meant I was injecting insulin directly in my body about 4 times a day. And things got a lot worse from then, because insulin is, it's a fat producing hormone. So all that sugar that might be floating about in our blood system has to be converted into something the body can kind of deal with. And because the normal functioning isn't there, then effectively all that sugar combines with insulin, and there were triglycerides. There's fat, extra fat is produced in the body. So between 2015 and 2022, I put on just over 7 kilos. It may not seem a lot, but it took me to 107 kilos. And for a man who's only 5'7", 5'7" and a quarter, I keep saying 5'7" and a quarter, that's really quite some weight to carry. So those were really bad times for me, and I got anxiety, and I used to worry about, have I got the right insulin, the insulin pen with me? How much do I need to take for this meal? I'm not used to eating Greek food. How much do I put in my body? And
so you have to your insulin as you eat it. So you've eaten different
within
foods,
10
and you need to work it all out.
Say within 10 minutes of eating food, either 10 minutes before or 10 minutes after, you should inject the right amount of insulin for that food, so that effectively, as it's converted immediately into sugars, the insulin can get working. But it's a tough process.
It sounds like guesswork. You can't go to a restaurant and say, what's the sugar index for my diabetes, please?
It's a really, really tough thing to do. And of course, those who have type 1 diabetes, they have, they oftentimes now they wear these modern pumps, so that effectively that can directly read what the body's saying and apply the right insulin to it. But as a type 2 diabetic, it was more wet finger in the air type stuff. And, I was just about to say that because of this reliance on insulin, and there were 2 or 3 times when I actually ended up in the hospital, because I used to, there's a short lasting insulin, which is really what I've been describing so far, which you'll have with every meal, depending on how many carbohydrates you take. And there's a longer form of insulin, which, because the liver continues to produce glucose all the night to feed the brain and stuff like that, there's a longer lasting insulin that I was on for the evening. But those 2 or 3 times I ended up in hospital, I actually picked up the wrong pen. And the effect was I put in 6 times as much insulin as I needed in my body.
Oops.
Which, and it was worrying for me, but more worrying to my for my son, and for my not so much for my son, I guess, but definitely for my wife, because she was fairly powerless in terms of what to do.
Yeah.
In that situation, and it was, it was calling the hospital, and an overnight visit to the hospital, and it wasn't good. It wasn't made. As I say, I had all this anxiety and the physical pain of injecting yourself and whatever. Something had to change. Now, I tried the diet and exercise route. As I say, I'd managed to reverse it for between 18 months and 2 years, but it always comes back. There was something missing. And so, one of my, basically my son was very worried, and he knew somebody else who had type 2 diabetes, and he'd lost his leg. And he said to me in Christmas time in 2022, Dad, I know someone who has had their leg chopped off because of type 2 diabetes. When are you going to have yours done? And that I realized at that point, God, I should have realized 20 odd years ago, but at that point it just became immutable. I had to do something about this. Luckily I had some skills that helped me. So I was a project manager at the time, and I was very good at forming plans and doing my research and things. So I got to work on the books and started reading about all this, and finding out, can it be reversed? Oh, yes, it can. Yes, it can. So, I was encouraged by that, and I started on the diet and exercise route again, and I was very successful. And within 4 months, no longer needed insulin, no longer needed tablets, and I was diet controlled once more. But I knew, John, from those previous 2 times when I got rid of it, that there needed to be something else. There was something missing.
Yeah. So on the diets, and when you're doing the diet, is it because you get bored of doing the diet that you slip back to your diabetes?
You might think that, but and I thought that as well. But no, it's not that. It's the fact that the root cause hasn't been addressed, and the root cause was trauma that I experienced myself back when I was 8, and I don't want to go into what that was, but it was the base of that trauma that formed some of my habitual eating patterns. And I'd always been a big kid. I remember at the age of 16, I was 16 stone. And that, again, that's carrying quite some weight. So I knew that it was something to do with this root cause, and I was just blessed because, I found myself a healer. Found myself somebody who uses the same practice I use now, and we did some work. And we uncovered those things in my past that were causing abnormalities in my desires to eat and things like that. And once those were stripped away, because I'd already formed good habits in terms of eating and whatever, that just accelerated things. And it meant that I have every confidence that it's not going to come back now.
That's fantastic.
And really, this healing, this emotional healing, is absolutely critical. And God's behind that. I will not hide from that. God has had a massive hand in my discovery of this route. to type 2 diabetes reversal. And he remains such a sustaining force in my life, and my desire to get out there and help heal others, you know, because it goes to my heart now. It really does. It's a heart-led activity.
Yeah.
And I'm doing God's work. So I'm really blessed by that. And you and I have met in this moment, and what I think we should kind of explode is giving people, and I think men are underserved on this, actually, John.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's what our discussions are about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's include women, but we want to be men focused.
Yeah.
So we're being open for everybody.
We want to, and that's the reason behind this this energetic kind of medicine exploration that I've been going through over this last week on my Facebook page and things, because I want to open up this discussion, and you and I want us to gather a community of, men who are looking to explore what alternatives there are. Because I think we all reach a point where if we have what's called, and I do hate the term as well, but I'm going to use it again. If we do have a chronic condition, or if we have chronic pain, and chronic just means we've had it for a bloody long time, and we're, and
I was having trouble trying to work which one's out.
Yeah, and chronic strips away the hope that you're ever going to get out of it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
I love that thought. I don't like that thought, but I like the idea. Yeah.
But basically, why I'm excited about what you and I are proposing to do here is because it opens up the whole avenue for people who feel trapped by the health condition that they're in, by the pain that they're experiencing, and it gives them an alternative way of. I won't use the word cure, because I'll probably have a few doctors knocking on my door telling me I'm a bad man.
Yeah.
But dealing with the energetic misalignment.
Yeah.
I
think that's what's missing with a lot of ways we help people, or the way doctors work, because it's very they give everybody a chemical to help them. And it's working with people physically, and chemically, and we're not just physical bodies. We have energy in ourselves, and that empathy and that connection with others. And it's understanding that yes, those drugs will help, but also you can help yourself by taking the dis out of disease. And be at ease. And your modalities and the modalities I do is exactly that. When I work with people, they tell me what's wrong with them, and then I just put that in a bin on the side and say, let's work with you. And they need to work with the doctors, and I'm not having to do that. Keep taking your drugs and everything, because it's not my responsibility. But it's let's get those trapped energies, because we basically do the same thing. We do it in different modalities. Is let go of let's work on the energy of what's stopping you being you. And your time when you're a child, and I think it's an 8-year-old. We all have those, and it turns out that blockage turns out to some disease. So you let that blockage, you release that blockage, and then the disease turns to ease.
Yeah. And the fantastic thing is, I went through this process, John, and I don't know, it's quite amazing to me, actually, that there were some things in my past, some of these generational blockages. And there was one particular one that was 16 generations deep. And I know you and I have talked before about some things going back thousands of years that are passed on down the line, and they've become and they've got impact 2,000 years late, I don't know, I'm just putting a random number down there,
Yeah.
but can have ramifications 2,000 years later.
Yeah.
Because of this misalignment.
You keep doing the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah.
I really don't understand all that, but it seems to be that you keep coming back until you get that sorted.
Yes.
But and once you got it sorted, I don't know if you ever come back or we just go off and somewhere else. I haven't got a clue because I've never been there yet, or perhaps I have and I don't know about it.
Yeah.
So but it's really getting down to that's all a little bit, and beyond touching my beliefs, but it helps people going back to past lives.
Yeah,
because you have those flashes, and it happens to me, and then I can let that problem go now, and then things change here in now.
Yeah.
So whether it's just imagination or whether it's a real thing, I don't really care, but it works.
Yeah, it does. It does absolutely. And to that. John, when I do my interviews, I always keep below 30 minutes, but this is just a fascinating conversation, and it's one we're going to continue to come back with before we launch this group, which I think we're probably going to do around September time.
Yeah, that's our plan.
But I think there's tremendous benefit in just having this discussion and posting it online so that people can begin to open up their minds towards the fact that there may be an alternative to the pain and suffering that they're currently going through.
I'm trying to think of a good metaphor to finish with, but it'll come in a second.
Oh God, John, well, I'll carry on talking inanely.
Well, I think we've all seen those things that I'm guessing that everybody's had one of those moments that, if I do that, then everything's going to be fine. Or if I'm going to do that, then shit. I won't say shit. Well, I've said it anyway. Shit happens.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to do it because you've been conditioned to do it, and then shit happens, and you knew that was going to happen anyway, but you still did it.
Yeah,
and it's getting noticing those things and saying no. And no, I'm not doing that anymore because I'll hurt myself, I'll hurt others. Be me. So it's that listening to your body.
I think that's a really good example, John. And sometimes, in order to break free from that patterning, we need help.
Yeah.
We need somebody to help us.
Nick my words. That was my next sentence.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I eat words for a living, John. So I've eaten yours on that occasion. But we're in tune, aren't we? We it's we can eat each other's words. You can eat mine next time.
Yeah, I think it's quite strange how we've only known each other 3 months ago because we're seeing each other next week. And we never spoke at that meeting.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw you because you're one of the odd ones out because you're a man. Because there's mostly women there, as it always is in this what we're trying to do here. That it's the energy work is full of women. But if you go back in history, yes, there's a lot of women, but the men led the women in the energy work, in the energy world, in the Wicca world, and and other places. The gurus were the men. And I'm not saying that we are.
And it's not about gender, is it? Because
no, it's not.
All bodies of energy.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just, I think, as a man, we have to be strong and we have to be supportive of our families, and our job is to go out there and earn some money and do all that kind of bollocks. But we need to, this hurts me quite a lot because I am self-employed, and if I'm not well, I'm not earning money. So isn't it so much more important to look after your health? That's what I've been really well since I've actually got myself in balance. And
things don't really worry me.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll undo them and sort the things out, but I don't carry the worry with it.
Yeah, so keep an eye on, however you're listening to this, if you're listening to it on YouTube or you're listening to this on your Facebook page or my Facebook page, wherever you're listening to this, keep an eye out for the next one. Keep an eye out for the group we're forming, because you know, it could change your life.
I don't think there's a could at all. It will change your life.
I'll go with that one, John.
Yeah, should we finish now?
All right.
Or else we'll be talking forever.
Yeah. Thank you, John. No,
thank you very much, Stephen. That was great.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.